Thanks to everyone for showing up this evening. Um, we are recording this event so people who couldn't join us can watch it again at their leisure. This is Single Onion number 177, and we're pleased to be collaborating with the Frontenac poets from 2020. It was kind of a strange year to be launching poetry books. Um, there was a lot of poetry books that came out last year, and so we really want to shine a spotlight on this great work from these four authors. Our first poet this evening is Tyler B. Perry, and he's a Calgary poet and high school English teacher. He's one of the organizers of the Can You Hear Me Now, the Alberta Provincial Junior High and High School Poetry Slam. And he's performed his poetry to audiences across Canada and as far away as Japan. He's the author of two previous collections of poetry, the first being Lessons in Falling from Bee House Publications and Belly Full of Rocks from Ulacan Books. He holds an MFA in creative writing from the University of British Columbia, and his latest collection, which I've got here, is Plausible Wrong Answers. And he collaborated with an illustrator, Anna Navarro, and I understand that Anna has been nominated for an Alberta Book Publishing Awards for Best Book Illustration. So that's really exciting. So I'm going to pass it over to Tyler.
Great, thank you, David. Thanks to the Single Onion. Wow, I had no idea you had that many going. That's a lot. I think it's the longest running series in Calgary, isn't it? Isn't that right? Yeah. Well, thanks for having us. Thanks for having the Quorum TED out. And thanks to Shelf Life. I'm going to be reading from Plausible Wrong Answers, and I'm just going to share my screen here just because, well, for one thing, there's visual elements to a lot of the poems in this book, but also I want to show off some of the illustrations that are up for that award that you mentioned. So in Plausible Wrong Answers, the book, I play around with the format of the test, the multiple choice test, the reading comprehension test to be specific. And so what I've done is, in some cases I've created questions from my own poems, and in other cases I've created new poems from old questions. I'm going to start with this poem, Magpie. Take a lesson from the magpie, who in January rips breakfast from ice and asphalt, tempting traffic to crush its hollow bones, while its beak scrapes clean eye sockets of a flattened squirrel. The blind anger of winter punishes these birds, coal-feathered fighters who would claw at a car tire before surrendering a meal. I've heard that magpies remember faces, are known to take revenge. Even while blood recoils in their empty bellies, you'll hear them screeching at the dawn, their pointed beaks daring winter to look them in the eye. And here's the question, it's number 15. In the poem Magpie, the squirrel is employed by the poet as a symbol of A, an obsolete public school curriculum, flat, dry, but still useful to the student. B, a sightless ideology turned carrion, flattened and decimated by pedagogical opportunists. C, the desperation of humans to find meaning and contentment in the chaotic brutality of the winter of our times. D, casualties claimed by industry and progress. Or E, the hopes and dreams of the poet. Not the speaker, the poet. All right, so there's an answer key at the end. You can email me for it. Another one follows a similar format, and I like the way this one looks on a 2-page spread, so I'm just going to show off the visual of it. And it's called Moths. Moths beat dusty wings against a pane, the only barrier between us and them. We wrap our cold bodies in each other inside the motel and flick through all the channels, searching for an old movie that we saw together one time. But the guide is missing, so we decide just to make love and fall asleep to the sound of moths. Number 20. The structure of the poem Moths serves best to A, mimic the movement of the midnight moth who searches to satiate its lust for light. B, give the impression that each couplet's landing is a new moment of the speaker's hunger for warmth and comfort. C, confuse the reader by defying the conventional left to right progression of the written English language. D, minimize the visual effect of white space. Maximize the visual effect of white space to enhance the secluded atmosphere, the quiet night, the fleeting awareness of mortality. Or E, speak to the marginalized among us, those of us underrepresented in literature selected for high school study. We are each a pair of eyes peering in from the dark, blinded by unfamiliar light. Okay, I'm going to scroll down to the illustrated section. And by the way, the Alberta Book Awards are tomorrow. They'll be live at 3 p.m., I believe, Calgary time. So, and another one of our readers tonight has been shortlisted. I won't spoil the surprise for you if you haven't heard. But here is the section that is illustrated by Anna. And so how this section works is called short answer response. And there are 3 elements to this. And this part was so much fun to create because I loved how interactive it was. For one thing, it starts with found text. So the text up top here is actually found text from the Alberta curriculum. In fact, it specifies the objectives of specific questions on the multiple choice reading comprehension test. And then down below is my poetic response to the question, and then illustrated by Anna. So there are 3 elements. So much depends. Identify the quality of a subject, primarily established by details in a specified line of a poem. This is not my best subject. When forced to read a poem, from the first detail, each specific line takes me further from myself. Consider a series of words from a poem to identify the diction that reinforces a specified concept. A series of written words assaults my conscious mind. Specified concepts evade me. Identify the sentiment developed by details in specified lines of a poem. The sentiment developed as I read these lines reminds me of the time I fell into a lake, not knowing how to swim. Consider context and a footnote to identify the implication of a specified allusion in a poem. The allusions in a poem remind me of how much literature I've yet to read. It's one of my favorites because she incorporated the poem into her illustration, and I love what she did with the footnotes there. Identify the main sentiment reinforced by a simile in a specified line of a poem. The smell of sweat and anxiety, thick as fog among the desks, glazes my clotted thoughts, saturates this poem, drips specified lines in rivulets down the window of my perception. That's the last one I'll read from this section. Identify the attribute of the speaker conveyed by the poet's use of apostrophe in specified lines in a poem. You poet, you tinker with words, arrange them on paper in ways that evade my comprehension. Okay. I'm gonna stop sharing now and then just read from the book. That's okay. Right. Just do a couple more pieces, still from the same book. They're just a little less visual. So you got a little teaser of Anna's illustrations. I think you saw 4 of them or 6. She illustrated 16 pages. So this next piece is what I call a distractor poem, which takes questions from an Alberta achievement exam, an Alberta diploma exam, and then writes a poem to match the question. This one is called How to Bathe a Child. Number 28. In Seamus Heaney's poem, Mother of the Groom, the image of his glistening back in the bath, lines 2 to 3, reveals the A, depth of the mother's emotion, B, son's innocent view of the world, C, son's contentment during childhood, or D, vividness of the mother's recollections. Mother rarely recalls things vividly anymore. Images splash across the fogged glass of her memory. His glistening back in the bath, the sopping washcloth in her curled fingers, the steady trickle of a leaking toilet tank. The depth of the well in which her memories stir together like milky bathwater is unknown. Confusion pools the rims of her eyes, clings to each lash like hoarfrost. He bathes her now that she knows him again, dabs at bed sores with the sponge, views the world through the rippled scars left by last winter's case of shingles. Not that she remembers. She is innocent of the pain and the howls that ring from her body back then. She hums her contentment, a child again. When she is dried off and tucked into bed, he drops a kiss on each closed eyelid, 2 rocks into a bottomless pond. I'll just read one more. Been feeling like fairy tales lately, so I think I'm going to read a couple of fairy tale inspired poems in here. All right, and this one is in the voice of the father of Hansel and Gretel, and it's called Bread or Blood. I look back at my son, his hair dying embers of daylight, his eyes searching mine for reason. He's been chewing his lower lip again, tough bread until it splits. His mind needs a stubborn ball of doubt. They heard us talking last night, are aware we value bread more than blood. Bread torn into crumbs, strewn upon the ground, planted in the bellies of birds. Selfish, blood circulates in a body, does not want to be spilt. Blood betrays. My son in the moonlight nurses a brazen hope that bread will guide him back, that his sister will follow. At home, under an indifferent moon, I sharpen my axe on a stone, run my palm along the blade, watch black droplets gather on the flint at my feet, while in the woods, their fire fades to embers, and my son stares down the tunnel of night, knows the birds ate the bread. The way back is severed, and the father he loves has bled his own children out into the night. Thank you. And that poem was actually also a collaboration with ceramic artist Pamela Fitzgerald. I can put a link in the chat to her work. But she has some beautiful ceramic pieces. And so some of them were inspired by my poems, and some of my poems were inspired by her pieces. But yeah, so that's it for me for tonight. Thank you very much, Shelf Life and Single Onion, for having me on tonight.
Thanks so much, Tyler. And that was really great to see the visuals going with your poems as well. And good luck to Anna tomorrow. It's very exciting.
Yes, thank you.
Our second poet this evening is Lisa Richter, and she's the author of her first book, Closer to Where We Began, from Typo Books, and her latest, right there, Nautilus and Bone, from Frontenac House, winner of the National Jewish Book Award for Poetry, and announced earlier this week the Canadian Jewish Literary Award for Poetry. Nautilus and Bone was longlisted for the Raymond Souster Award and shortlisted for the Book Publishers Award. The Book Publishers Association of Alberta's Robert Crouch Award. That's a mouthful. Which will be announced this Friday. So there's another announcement that we're looking for tomorrow. Her poems have appeared in the Malahat Review, Grain, CV2, Exile Quarterly, and elsewhere. She lives in Toronto. So please welcome Lisa.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you to the Single Onion and Shelf Life for having us. Before I begin my reading, I'd like to acknowledge the land that I'm standing on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabeg, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. Today, this meeting place is still the home to many Indigenous peoples from across Turtle Island. And as a settler, I am very grateful to have the opportunity to live and work on this land. As mentioned, I'm going to be reading tonight from my collection, Nautilus and Bone, which came out with the other quartet authors a year ago, almost to the day, I don't know, but last September, and I can't believe it's been a whole year. And it's been a really exciting year in a lot of ways for me. The collection revolves around a Yiddish poet named Anna Margolin, who was born in 1887 and died in 1952. There's actually a photograph of her in the back of the book, which I will share with you. Anna Margolin was born in Russia and immigrated to the United States in 1906. She was radical, passionate, temperamental, very much in defiance to the gender norms of her time, in writing about queerness and writing about sexuality and writing about the body. And many of the poems in the collection are in conversation with her. I'm also going to read a few new poems, time permitting, but the one that I'm going to start with is called Rosa to Anna. Anna Margolin was actually a pseudonym, I should mention. Her birth name was Rosa Lebensboim. Rosa to Anna. I did not hate my name, only felt myself imprisoned in roses, in the violence of thorns. Oh, Rosa, thou art sicker than Blake's invisible worm. No howling storm to fly in the night. Only a howling in the heart's cold grotto, a crawling of the wormed apple, the sugar plum overture to a funeral march. Oh, how I choked on my mother's perfume, her fear's awful musk, too dense for even the heaviest of florals to mask. Anna, sweet palindrome, the Latin form of the Hebrew Hannah. Anna, a name to bathe in, a name that does not give me whiplash each time I hear it. Anna, elemental in its frequency. Anna, everywhere in this Babel labyrinth of cities shimmering with derelict oil and muffled lust. Anna warms your hands in hers by an iron hearth. Anna rocks you to milk-drunk sleep. Anna, the flavor of kosher salt, liverwurst, pickles, beer, chicken schmaltz. Anna, the wind snap of calico shirtwaists and aprons on clotheslines from fire escapes and tenement windows, shameless and fluttering. Anna, the dirt packed beneath the nails of the huntress. Anna, ochre roots tendril deep into Bronx asphalt. Anna, with each reach and twist, tunneling deeper. Anna, into the belly of this new world, my words are wilding. The next poem is called I Am a Dagger, and it takes its title from a poem actually by Anna Margolin. The lines at the beginning of the poem are also Anna's. From a distant summer, hot laughter floats towards me from two small and dainty women leafing through a picture book. Their hands meet in longing. Anna Margolin on a balcony. I am a dagger among wild orchids, hydrangea, skunkweed, pearl inlaid handle protruding from the soil where my blade thrusts downwards, rubbed warm by earthworm and grub, accepting me as their own. I am most at home inverted, submerged in earth or mythic tides. No patience for pallid niceties pooling around my ankles. Might that be why I am never not swimming amongst sunken wrecks, lingering to caress the statues of bards disguised as deities, in a darkness so deep, there are no beasts it won't devour. The golden peacock folds a discerning eyelid, making a spectacle of its gaze. Or is the truth that I, in my rag and bone finery, will forever be transposing my palette of seaweed and copper over pavement and filth? That my eyes have grown used to half light, cupped by crude blinders of my own crafting? I am no more indentured to writing of city grit or in prayerful couplets than I am to loving only David's marble torso, dipping my hands into sapphic streams that flood my face in silver froth. By night, I conjure a woman's uncorseted waist, sifted flower to the touch, her mouth's figment of amethyst, wetly shining as we pant breast to breast, our bodies conjoined in the river that runs homeward with the womb's mud slick matter. I'm going to read one more poem from the book. This is the final poem in the collection. It's in 3 sections. The poem is called Afterward. The Jewess plots her escape route. For years, I communed with gods and ghosts, elbow to elbow at the banquet table, blessing the feasts of alternating seasons. So much bounty, we could hear the sculpted legs groaning. In those days, the poems would not relent. Swelling after vertiginous swell, my open wounds wild stung with salt. An ice blue pain I came to savor. Across the Atlantic, illustrious men hunched over each other's calfskin volumes, who couldn't place my nom de plume, crowed their praise for the volume I'd labored to birth. The local birds I'd flock to, Schreibers whose own work these bloody-knuckled hands helped thrust into light, left me freezing amongst empty milk bottles. My name thinner than gauze, a will-o'-the-wisp with breasts and hard feelings. Still, I coaxed spring's entrance with pan flutes and the yelps of wounded foxes. Hush, all you diabolical critics, each vying for the deepest cut. Beneath the quilted silence, a conch shell's whale song rescinds decrees for my undoing. I look in the mirror, cough up my snarling double. She sticks to the glass and demands compensation. 2. Letter by letter, the poems taper off. I turn to my rose bushes and swallow pure sky, smuggle lungfuls of nightshade and wormwood. The pearls that were my nails fill with nectar and sheep's blood. A certain Mr. Samuel Lipitsky of Montreal asks me to sign a book for his great-granddaughter, who won't be born for decades. I collapse on a bed of prayers and petitions. Let the imprints of my curses and apocryphal curves fill with lamplight and snow. I abandon the shoes I've hobbled in across fissured continents, begging for truth in 6 dialects of a forgotten language. Nothing but magpies and vultures. No one but scarecrows and derelicts to taste an anguish so delicate it shatters sternum and clavicle. Oh, bone fragments, growing little wings, take flight. 3. Littlest Matryoshka doll, wooden nub of a girl with pancake eyes frozen in wonder. Your absence in my core weighs more than all your sisters combined. Perhaps it is true. I have no regard for the sanctity of mild discomfort. My hands smell of almonds with hints of disappointment. I pen my epitaph, turtle doves pecking at my knees. Space is an illusion shared by those of us always digging ourselves out of early graves. The dance shall commence at the stroke of eternity. I collect the dried tissue paper wings of my most beloved adversaries, clasp them flat to my chest. Who would I be without their familiar song? The squalid reminder of worlds that cast me from their phallic casts. When I write, she squandered her life on nothing, on rubbish. A certain lightness propels me. Mirage oasis cool water gushing over desert chapped lips. I'm done rooting in the rubble of bombarded castles, finally free to snub the ballrooms of normalcy and civic engagement. As my mother used to say, don't send a dog to the butcher shop. You can't empty the ocean with a spoon. I'm going to read a couple of other pieces. One more recent one for something completely different. This is called The Crashing of the Floodgates. Before the flash flood, we strolled the zoo like the emperor and empress of leisure. We draped creamy sweaters around our shoulders like tennis-playing realtors, the insignia of our misgivings over our breasts well concealed beneath strategically dangling sleeves. The peacocks knew better than to show their envy of our perfected saunter. A vagrant troop of monkeys mimicked our dalliances, our preoccupation with our own saccharine image. In those days, we followed every path to its logical conclusion. How we bristled with ambition, Herculean in its scope. Had we known those days were fleeting, would we have lengthened our gaze over the lavender night view, thumbed each other's cheekbones until darkness stealth muddled the green mess of flesh and grass? In the flood, we lost everything. Our capacity for reason and language swept away with the silverware and the muffin tins. Likewise, our composure, gone the way of our life-size bronze horses, which could only be seen through Carthaginian lenses. 3 blocks away, we found the agony of our innocence, hunkering with our cat in a vanquished dollhouse. We'd thought the ecstasy of our megalomania would be under the doormat where we'd left it, but in its place uncovered an amulet depicting a tree frog, 3 matchbooks, a news clipping about a Mongolian piano prodigy now taking Helsinki by storm, a poem about a spider in a library. How heartened we were to find ourselves in the throes of a conundrum finally worthy of our attention. As if we hadn't sacrificed the lifestyle magazine spreads of our abject complacency to the sulfurous waters of our gluttonous bloat. How heartened indeed, how excruciatingly blessed. And thank you. The poem that I'm going to close with is a very personal one. For those of you who don't know, some of you might know, today is Yom Kippur. It's the Jewish Day of Atonement. Actually, it started last night at sundown and ended tonight. This is a poem that I wrote on Yom Kippur 3 years ago when I was in New York City. This poem was published in the New Quarterly under the title Hermitage, but the original title of the poem was Elegy for My Father on the Day of Atonement. It comes as a shock, having gills, the seawater I breathe, how like hermit crabs or mud skippers, I dissolve oxygen, bubbles escaping my mouth like wanton pearls. Coral fingers, seaweed hair, a dorsal fin propelling me through Midtown Manhattan, membraned in grief, a blue silken shroud. I'm here in this city you loved as if it were your own. At 16, first busing from Montreal to the Port Authority terminal. Staying with cousins in Queens, you flocked to the World's Fair, gaping at chrome rockets, mini-skirted legs, queuing for It's a Small World After All. How many Coney Island hot dogs did you cram down your gullet? In those days, you were still 80, still too young for Abraham, a patriarch's yoke that your shoulders, no matter how they broadened, could never bear. You didn't care that I was marrying a goy, your second wife, a shiksa herself, having raised me in the temple of the beetles and bacon. Where are my gills now? Passing Jewish delis closed for the high holidays? I want to call you and tell you about the pickle store on Grand. Full barrels of brine, all the varying degrees of sourness, half, 3/4, full sour, for the ones like you, unafraid of minor keys. You'd be surprised to see 2 young guys with tattoos and trendy haircuts working there. Young pishers, you'd call them, unlike the alta-cuckers you might expect, sloshing their wares across a Formica countertop. I'd make you jealous with stories of brisket and bagels. Then sit back as your stories unspooled. My ear stethoscoping your flannel plaid voice, which is now the memory of hollowed midsummer foliage from the stone black pit of atonement's reckoning. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Lisa. That was really fantastic. And good luck tomorrow for your your award. Our next poet is Joan Shillington. I'll just unmute her there. Let This Lake Remember is Joan's 3rd book. Her poems have been published in the Antigonish Review, Freefall, Grain, CV2, Room, and Prairie Fire, among others, and also in anthologies. Folding the Wilderness Within from Frontenac House in 2014 was Joan's second book, and it was shortlisted for the City of Calgary's W.O. Mitchell Literary Prize. And Joan writes at a desk overlooking the Rocky Mountains at her home in Calgary. So please welcome Joan Shillington.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Good. Good. Thank you. So my book, Let This Lake Remember, is written about my childhood going out to Lake Wabman, which is west of Edmonton. I grew up in the 50s, 60s there, and it's a book about times gone past, a lot of memories that I bring up forward. So some innocent times, some very funny times, and some very stressful times. So I'd like to just begin in a September, because we're in September now. But if I were to paint just one scene from that time, it would be that September night beneath a neon moon. My father and I speeding across the lake with our midnight haul of fish, crystallized stars dancing on water. Dad's floodlight visible halfway back. On plywood sheets laid between sawhorses, we slit silver bellies of white fish, bare hands pulling out guts, slipped knives the length of a fillet between skin and meat. My parents' friends, my brother's sister, talking, laughing, throwing fillets into waiting pails, mindless of cut, gouged hands, freezing fingers. A common hand-washing pail, canvas-covered kegs spouted into mugs, Dad deep-fried fillets. Not a wind breath or cloud. Consider Monet and how he would find in the length of his stroke and palette, clarity in the changing qualities of light as this party revolved toward morning. He would capture moon's dominance over Lake Wabamun, our boat dwarfed on canvas, tranquility of water, fish assembly line on shore, beer froth. Monet would know there are many shades for shadows, even in the dark, night being only one of them. Have you ever in your life been somewhere, say in the tropics, and you've had a dream and it's about something you haven't thought about for years, but it's so clear that 5 years later you still remember it and write a poem about it? Well, that happened to me one time, and so I am going to read Dreamscapes for you. Dreamscapes. Bombs explode around my father and I, squeezing air without breath, without flame. Face down on the floor. Suddenly, our outside wall sucked away. We are exposed in a perfect dollhouse. No fallen plaster, bone china unblemished, velvet sofa intact. Is this a war? Yes, an old war. It's your war, Dad, and you've brought me with you. Pretend father, pretend daughter. Yellow field flowers dot my black dress with set-in sleeves. Circa 1943 lace Oxfords still on my feet. We talk without voice, ears, paper walls. A woman with a baby enters, suit smeared, torn black band on sleeve. Her silence slow, white as an Arctic landscape, white as the gray of your past, Dad. Now, the little babe is in my arms, and the woman tells me, you will be shot if they find this baby. My father answered, it would be an honor to die for your baby. So at the lake, the turning point of my childhood was when there was a boating accident and a neighbor drowned. And so there was a lot of stuff that went on, alcohol included. And I was 16. So it changed the course of my life, this whole accident. So I wrote this poem one time. Let this lake remember the breath it stole. How its weight still holds me captive on the bottom. Childhood strangled in nightmares. A non-invited guest at his funeral. All secrets exposed. World of the dead in an oak coffin. Gold handles. Blossoms cascade to the floor, into pews. My father's net shrouds the silence. Fly fishing, on a brighter note. As at dusk beside the Bow River, I watch a man fish in thin light. Stones wobble, undertow tugs him. The year I turned 8, Dad in hip waders, plaid sleeves rolled to elbows, piggybacks me across the Burling River, body braced against waist-high rapids. On the opposite bank, I slide off. He hands me a small rod, my cast stiff and jerky, spool too free, clear line tangles in the brush and rock. My father casts his fly on breath's arc, face bristled, sun-bronzed, every muscle loose. Shadows, music light in an easy breeze. When a trout hooks, he works tension and fish, jaw set. Water and sun scale the flash. I love walking in the winter. And we used to go walking, my brother and I, all the time down this little lane. There might be 1 or 2 street lights, but they were just little incandescent lights up at the top, and the snowflakes would come down and it would be so still. And I used to love those nights and just walking with my brother. And here's one with just my brother and I. Snow falling in large flakes. My older brother and I walk along Beach Road. Our footprints fill in behind us as if we had never been. We talk about how no 2 snowflakes are alike. I remove my mitten and crystals melt in the palm of my hand. This is what happens to our father's thoughts when he drinks too much. Let his words that fall on you also dissolve. And this is my last poem, Walking Through Bowness Park. The trees think winter today, yellow against blue sky. Yet some trees refuse to turn their leaves. What thoughts do these hold? Meteorologists predict a north wind shift, -20 drop, snow within 3 days. I fear freezing rain, weighted snowfall, black ice, broken limbs, branches. Canada geese have flown south. Only a few mallards glide on the pond. Turquoise heads shine like coins. As a child, I listened to The Leaves Mustn't Fall, a song about a little girl who will die by autumn. Her brother ties leaves to trees so she will live. Green thread, I think, each year, double strands with double knots, secure through snow and stronger storm. My knee begins to pain halfway through my walk. I feel a burden that is more than physical, yet do not want to rest on a memorial bench or beside meandering water. Something in me rails against the leaves that pelt my body in a risen wind. Thank you very much. Thanks to Shelf Life Books and also to David. Thank you very much. And nice to see you all tonight.
Thanks, Joan. That was wonderful. We have one more poet this evening. Before I get to Alex, I just have a couple of thank yous. I want to say thanks to our sponsors, the Canada Council, the Calgary Arts Development, especially to the League of Canadian Poets who are sponsoring this specific reading. They've been really helpful during the past year and a half. And we have a new sponsor. We're working with the Writers Guild of Alberta. We're collaborating with some events with them, and we really appreciate their support. And of course, we want to say thanks to Shelf Life Books. They're our host, whether it's in person or in virtual world. And we really want to express our gratitude to them for all that they do for the Calgary literary community. You can go to the store and find copies of the books from the poets this evening, and also you can find them online. I think June put the link in the chat box. And just to let you know that to find out more about the Single Onion, we've got an email list you can sign up for. You can find that on our website, which is singleonion.com. We're on Twitter and we're on Facebook, and you can keep up to date with all of our upcoming readings. Our next reading will be October 21st, and we've got 5 great poets for that one. Ray Ann Haynes, Jessica Moore, R.C. Waslowski, Kelly Shepard, and Kyle Flemmer. So I'm really looking forward to that one. And our final poet this evening is Alex Williamson. And he is a Canadian living with cystic fibrosis, and he is very lucky to be in Canada while having CF. Mostly, Alex only cares about books and fighting people. He writes scary stories and sad poems. He fences and boxes too. He has a BA in English from Mount Royal University, and that made a big difference. But most of what he learned came from falling off of things, getting lost, or being punched in the face. Very Bright, Almost Pretty is his first book, and it's from Frontenac. So please welcome Alex.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. Thank you to David and Single Onion for hosting, and Shelf Life Books as well for also hosting. Can everyone hear me? The last time I did this, I had a weird connection issue. You're good? Okay. All right. So I'll read a few poems from the old book here. I can say it's old because it's like 11 months at this point, so it's elderly. Okay, the first one is called Sick Days. That's right. Gotta have the right mouthfeel. Sick days. Tough love on my immunocompromised body is how I thrive. Keep pushing day by day, fight, sweat, hustle, and grind. Make my lungs work until climbing the stairs is nothing to complain about. If those squishy bastards want to bleed, I'll give them a reason to bleed. I still fall sick again. Eventually. Always. Take all my rage and make it stay still. Rest. I hate rest. Rest means staying up alone in a blue hospital room. Past my birthday, alone. Christmas, New Year's, alone, resting. I crave a run, feet over pavement, sprint fingers over a keyboard, box someone twice my size because my own body makes me feel so small. I still fall sick again, always. Worse every year. I am left alone, resting. My brain jitters anxious. This one's called Objectification. It was a special request tonight. I want every woman I meet to fall in love with me, since I can't get any of them pregnant. Anyway, we work with what we have. I only laugh when it's really funny, so you can't hear death kicking his can around my lungs. 5 kicks of the same can is a felony in Springfield. I think the somber chuckle adds to my ambiance. Melancholy looks good on me, matches my faded black denim jacket. I'm not so romantic as to seek the cleansing hand of love upon my brow. Well, not anymore. I'm not so horny that I think hours of sweaty, desperate sex will ward off oblivion. When I'm alone, plastic nebulizer tube of familiar violation inside my mouth, inhaling a vaporized enzyme to help dissolve some of the mucus lining my lungs, make it easier to cough up and spit out later. It's nice to get a text from a pretty girl, feel kind of handsome at a time like this. I have a sticky note of poems to read, and it just says improvise here, but I misspelled it, so it says improvis here. Would somebody like to type a page number into the chat, and I'll read that poem if her page is on. 42. Okay. What's on 42? Ah, it's a weird one. Well done, Lisa. Sorry, we'll do both. We'll see what happens. Rigid privacy vampire. Rigid is a tiny steel needle straight up my vein. Privacy is in my head. The door locks from the outside. Nurse comes as the creature in the dark. I feel not pain, not the swift snap of fangs, only a wrongness in my veins. The flow of life reversed. The jerk robs my juice, squirts in bug killers, asks about poop. The light is too dark for the glare of my non-consent to register. During the day, she smiles, all normal. This woman thinks she's normal, but no one is normal anymore, and screw normal anyway. Stop calling me honey, you fucking bear. Have you tasted my blood yet? Was it thin? I am a squirrel of a man, hiding what I don't want counted and charted. Crackers, 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 and snacks in the cupboard. Poetry on sticky notes, stolen plastic gloves, thoughts in my brains, lurking judgments, nurses age so fast here. Masturbate glaring at the door, eyes just open enough to watch the syringes. No amount of garlic or prayer will keep her from returning tomorrow. I huddle up and dissolve into the antiseptic foam and wait for it all to be over. Okay. What time is it? We're good on time? 8:02. Oh, we're right on time. Then number 14. Oh, geez, there's too many numbers now. Okay, we'll do Judith, and then I'm sorry, Joan, you're being abandoned. Okay, page 14 for Judith. Winter stars, a shadow, and me. Diagnosed 18 months after birth, I slipped past the screening, which is rare, and honestly, someone made a mistake. Every morning, I'd wake up not breathing, drag my snowsuit and lay on top of it until a parent took me out into the morning so the cold air could pat down the inflammation in my lungs. Mostly just ate mashed potatoes. I survived that first year and a half carried in the arms of my family, all of us riding the back of panic and intuition and love. I cried through all my treatments into adolescence, lied to all my classmates about why I wasn't at school. Couldn't tell them I visited the monster in the underground parkade of the children's hospital, a gaping, rattling shadow in the basement, smelling of stale gasoline. Into his maw, doctors tossed the kids plagued by words I only half understood. Chronic, pulmonary, terminal, infertile, compromised, disabled. The waiting room for babies with cleft lips getting surgery was right beside the CF clinic. I thought they were all contagious and heading down to the stinky parkade to be gobbled up. All grown now, living with a friend, I skipped my treatments all week and could not stop coughing, sitting in the dark, sick lungs aching, alone with the gaping, rattling other shadow in my lungs, coughing with tight lungs until out into the winter night I walk, searching for a familiar freeze to hold me calm. No stars overhead. The falling snow is filled with words I do not understand. Colonized, failing, transplant list. I feel an old fear, a cavernous, bottomless den of illness come to gobble me up, and all I've ever wanted to be. Red splashes the substance of fear I'm coughing up into the snow. There are no stars. When I touch my pen, their light is in my hand. Okay, we're gonna get back to the script here. My script, it's a sticky note. This is called Puppy Wisdom. It's about my dog Billy. Little Billy broke a nail. The cracked off bit dangles halfway to the quick. I'm wondering how I'll clip it without pinching his tender vein. Should I take him to the groomer or a vet? What's the cost? What's the price? What's the risk? Billy just nibbles off the damage, gives it a lick, forgets the whole damn thing. And the next one is called Canine Leukemia. You know, the water here. Canine Leukemia. I have him back for an hour or so near the end, around 5 a.m. I've been up watching over him just to be sure. In the kitchen, cooking him premium organic chicken breast. No more kibble for my guy, not now. He walks over to me, eyes alert, ears up, cocks his head, says, "Hi, Dad. I'd love a walk." I tell him I'd love nothing better than to walk with him. So out we go, his black fur a silver hue from the pale sky just before sunrise. His ears bob with every step. He sniffs around, pees on everything. I sing to him as always. We make it about 2 blocks before he grows tired. Back home he sleeps soundly. Not long later we bring a vet over to the house. I shake the man's hand, look him in the eyes, and let him kill my little boy. This one is called Wake. It's really thirsty in here today. Wake. My coffee is hot. My body is tired. All these years, I've just been trying to let the light in. Time passes, but honestly, I don't believe it does. The sun hasn't come up yet. Everything has been gray, year after year. I was arrogant with my fate. Thought there was no harm disappearing into grocery trips or doctor's appointments, living on someone else's errand list. So many days, but I am right where I've always been. The time I lost wasn't real. I've spent most of my life wishing to be gifted. I never have been. Someone I love once told me the saddest part about me is I'm always going to try harder. I think that's been true so far, but I'm not sad. The world gets darker. Gray becomes midnight. Imagine this. The moon has risen, brighter than I've ever seen. Okay, I just have 2 more little ones to wrap it up here. Complete our journey. This is called Moth. It's actually a title. Look, there's a little mothy moth on the cover there, just escaping. Moth. A dead moth trapped behind the blinds, now fallen to the floor. Poor guy snuck into a warm place with nothing to eat. myself sitting on my hospital bed, alone with all my life, desperate to be more than this moment. I don't want to turn to dust on the linoleum. I don't want to die following the rules of my genetics. Tomorrow afternoon, the maid will be here, sweep away the corpse, maybe without even noticing. I won't let it happen. From my open window, I offer to wind the crumbling moth. One last flight that nobody saw coming. Okay, last one more. I'm almost done. This is called Gentle Places, Jagged People. My people are unruly children, all of us, even the good ones. We are fighters, we are survivors, we are dying in hospital beds. We are purple-faced, we are fire-eyed, very bright, almost pretty. We are awake in the never dark, we know it so well. We have scars all over, bits of plastic sticking out of us. We are charts and graphs in the big decline. We know secrets we were too young to hear. We are trying to be okay anyway. We are sorry for you to love us. We won't let go. We are jagged people in gentle places. We are searching for a home. We are suffocating along the way. We are not who sickness taught us to be. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Alex. That was really amazing. And I want to thank all four of our poets this evening, Tyler, Lisa, Joan, and Alex, for joining us. Part of the Frontenac Quartet series from 2020. And thanks again to Shelf Life Books for being our virtual host, and to the League of Canadian Poets for sponsoring this event. And thanks to all of you for coming out to join us. So we'll be back, what did I say, October 21st with 5 excellent poets. I'm really looking forward to that one. And I'm really happy that we can continue to bring poets together to share their work and continue that sense of literary community, even if we're spread apart like this. So thanks again, everyone, and have a wonderful evening.